So over the next few minutes, I'll introduce Creative Europe and Creative Europe Desk, explain the difference, and tell you about our latest achievements, latest results of the UK sector, and then explain why we're staging this event today and why is it important to talk about the future today. We're going to reflect on Creative Europe, which is the European Union cooperation program, currently in its fourth year. It started in 2014 and will run until the end of 2020. It is for the first time that the audiovisual and cultural sectors are supported together by one EU program. This is to reflect the fast-changing, digitally connected world where both sectors can embrace the opportunity to learn from one another while facing similar opportunities and challenges. 38 EU and non-EU countries participate in the program and make use of a 1.46 billion budget. The organizer of today's forum is Creative Europe Desk UK, which is a dynamic partnership set up by some of the UK's key public bodies in the culture sector, which aims to ensure the UK's fullest possible participation in this program. The partnership is led by the British Council and the British Film Institute, where I work, and includes Arts Council England, Creative Scotland, and the Welsh Government. It is supported by the European Commission and the Department for Culture, Media and Sport. Our team, most of whom are here today, are based in offices across the UK in Edinburgh, Glasgow, Cardiff, Manchester and London, and I'm pleased to say that we are just reopening our office in Belfast. We really have a wonderful job, that of an enabler. We love doing what we do, especially when, like today, we can help present the successes and impacts the organizations and companies achieve and stimulate debate. Today, we're launching the report on the results, and we're already running behind, so I'm going to say nothing about them, but I'm going to ask you over the drinks, what is the highlight? So let's move on that. We're doing well out of the program. It's been documented very well, so that's an old message. But I would like to concentrate on what are the reasons for talking about Creative Europe and international collaboration, and in particular collaboration with Europe today. So the program obviously facilitates certain activity and stimulates all those connections and links and cooperation. It is currently at its midpoint, and across Europe the conversation is beginning about the future direction of the program post-2020. Is the program still relevant? Does it need a rethink? Should the focus remain on the current objectives, which are cultural diversity, competitiveness, and circulation? Should the program support innovation more? These are all the questions that people are beginning to ask, facing the future in the rest of Europe. Well, we have our own questions that we need answering, and the other reason to meet together today is the UK's decision to leave the EU. This development has created a degree of uncertainty, as we all know. As the Prime Minister said herself, though, we are leaving the EU, but we are not leaving Europe. However, if we are leaving the EU, the future of our collaboration with Europe is inevitably changing, and we need a reflection and redefinition. So, for example, Creative Europe, this program does what it does, but if for political reasons it's not possible to carry on with it, what might the UK and indeed other European sectors lose by the UK no longer being able to be involved in this program? How can we ensure that the activity currently supported continues to thrive? For example, in future, will a UK city have a chance to repeat the success of Glasgow in 1990 and Liverpool in 2008 as a European capital of culture? Next such opportunity is in 2023, but will it be for us to take? For the time being, we know that it is business as usual, and the UK participates in the program fully and without prejudice until it actually leaves the EU. The date for the exit is currently set on 29th of March 2019. Our team has been working really hard to spread the reassuring messages both at home and in other European countries The applications from the UK organisations are treated on equal footing to all others. And indeed, the results show that the interest and the engagement with the programme has not been adversely affected at all. But what about the future? What about after the exit? While participation in Creative Europe is automatic for EU countries, the programme also allows for and indeed encourages the participation of non-EU countries under certain conditions. These countries must pay an appropriate financial contribution and comply with certain EU principles and policies. There are currently 10 countries, including Norway and Iceland, that take part in the programme on the basis of their government's agreements with the European Commission. In the same vein, other EU programmes supporting innovation through collaboration in the fields of education and science, such as earlier mentioned Erasmus and Horizon 2020, they also encourage casting the net of collaboration wider than the EU member states. We know that it is the view of the majority of stakeholders in the UK that continued participation in the programme, beyond the UK's departure from the EU, would be the best way forward. And the sector is calling the government to negotiate this with the EU as part of leave negotiations. Administrations in devolved nations and other sector representatives, such as What Next, are all calling for the same thing. An independent survey report that we commissioned earlier shows that 87% of the creative professionals, not just programme beneficiaries, crucially, think the sectors would benefit from continued participation in Creative Europe. We mustn't forget, though, that, as in all negotiations, there are two parties and that it won't be the UK's decision alone. The other member states will all need to agree, but given the UK's contribution and reputation of a valued and forward-thinking partner on countless projects, we hope that other countries will welcome our wish to continue to participate. While it is theoretically possible for the UK to negotiate its continued participation in Creative Europe or to replace this fund with a domestic fund, in both instances, a strong case would need to be made to the Treasury to make the resources available. There's a long queue of representatives of other sectors bidding with their needs. This is why it is reassuring that Creative Europe is being discussed in the context of the Creative Industries Council's work on the government's industrial strategy, and that, for example, Peter Bazalgette referred to Creative Europe when he gave evidence to the Culture and Media Sport Committee inquiry on the impact of Brexit on creative industries. So today, we are hoping that our collective reflection will also help demonstrate the true value of the programme, which goes well beyond the sum of the grants received. By hearing from some of those who have benefited from support from Creative Europe projects, we'd like to discuss the impact that the programme is having in the UK. It is about the partnerships and networks and the way of working that the programme promotes, which opens new opportunities that come from unexpected places and connections. We've been working to demonstrate the true value of these collaborations, but as you can imagine, these can be challenging to measure. And we have been and will continue to ask you to share evidence of the positive impacts this way of working has had. In a few minutes, you will hear from 7 very different examples of what effect Creative Europe had on UK's organisations and people. Could this have been achieved through a national fund or without public funding at all? Keep that thought in mind while listening to their accounts.